Tell me about it.
All right, guys, we are live. This would be, I believe this is our first broadcast to YouTube. Yeah, so this is the 15th episode, and we have kind of broadened our reach here, trying to get to a few more people. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, oh well, we're still going to talk and have a good time.
It was my fault, really.
It was. Now show them why it was your fault, Rich.
All right, so we would try and do the StreamYard thing, and my phone would overheat and would break because I broke my phone a couple of months ago. So if you see that,
I want to point out that little dot right there. That's not the camera lens or the flash.
That's
it's
a screw.
Screw.
Yep. So I fell, and the first phone call I made after I fell, I didn't realize it broke, and I cut my ear up. So ever since then, the phone was against me. But I finally got a new phone, which allowed the Creators Corner to expand its horizon. So, wow, that's a real level of power that I wield here.
Yep. That's the Mike Tyson phone right there when your ear starts bleeding.
Oh, geez, yeah. That's...
Okay, can we just call it what it is? It's a Mike Tyson phone.
It's a Mike Tyson phone.
So, kind of show off the new little thing here behind us. We picked us up a banner here, nice retractable that Brian Weeks will be taking down to CGC with him when he goes down there to help us, and he's going to be interviewing the talent at CGC. Mike Mayhew, Connor Palmiotti, and Greg Horn. So, yeah.
Very cool.
That's cool.
All right. Now, we'll kind of get into the thick of things here.
There's the real banner.
Yeah. As far as what's been going on in, comic retailing, the comic industry, things everybody's, kind of seen, experienced. I guess mine's not really retail related. It's movie related. I know you've all seen it, but we'll get to that in a bit. So we'll start with, Mr. Jesse James. What have you experienced this week, bud?
You know what? We are ending our greatest month in history in not overall sales, but in profit and loss, margins, turn rates, sell-throughs. I think the issue we're having is 4 months ago, we had averaged about 2,200 customers a month. We've had our greatest profit loss month with only about 112 customers. And when you start realizing you're selling the same customer almost 6 times a week now on the Binge Bar Comic Book Shopping Network, and of course some of those people are local, they come and pick up their books, we're finding that now there's a shortage on books. On back issues. So we're actually driving up right now to Flagstaff to pick up about 10,000 books. And we realize 10,000 books to us is only about 3 to 4 weeks of sales. So we are in this renaissance of, holy cow, where do we get all these back issues from? And so we've been contacting a lot of stores that have been going out of business or just not doing anything in general, buying their inventory, giving them some funds to go forward, and in our case, providing our customers with more product to buy.
John?
That's a great problem to have.
It is. Yeah. But it does kind of raise, a lot of times when I tune in the Binge Bar, I see some of the greatest 90s books ever produced, and, even on into the 2000s, and I just it sucks that well's running a bit dry in your local area. You're having to kind of branch out. So that means if you are a person ready to get off a collection and you live just outside of Arizona, Jesse James will come to you.
Yeah, I will.
JJ, what have you seen?
From my perspective, hearing stories like that, it's it just reminds me of that rule of 20 or rule of 25, which everyone's kind of aware of, where, everything that's 20 years old or 25 years old becomes hot again. So there should be no shock to a lot of people that we're seeing a lot of these older Image books or these Marvel, Onslaught, or these, we sometimes tend to forget how old things really are at the end of the day. To us, they seem like, for people like me, Crisis on Infinite Earth seems like that was just recent. To some extent. Yeah. And that came out in 87. So, it just kind of shows you that there's this love affair we have when we're young, and why Power Rangers is so popular right now and resonates with such a group of people, why Pokemon is so popular. And I think that these back issues, for a long time, they were just something that people weren't really interested in. They didn't care if they sold that collection or if they did that. But it also goes to show you that when you have the right platform and you build a base and you know what you're selling, people get interested in that. And we are also in such a speculator type driven market too, that a lot of times, a lot of these issues can become gold instantly. Look at the profit stuff, things like that. So to see Jesse saying that they're selling that many books it's not really a revelation. It's just, I kind of expected it, I guess, even though you hope for it. It's amazing to see it happen. And the fact that you have to go out and buy more collections and you're thrilled to get 90s books in them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not something that you would normally have heard a year ago, realistically. I mean, that was just kind of considered, I guess I'll take them off your hands.
Yeah. That was fodder at one point, 90s. That's what they were. But now, you have a new run of collectors, and not only that, but, people from my generation, our generation. I think Rich is about my age, but
Rich is younger than me.
Well, he's the same age as you.
He's younger than me.
By how much? A year?
I think a couple of years.
Okay, close enough.
I was surprised when I found out how young Rich was. I was just like, shit, okay.
Yep, 33 going on 55.
Yeah, I felt like John at that point when he said that. Just like,
So, and it's all the stuff that we loved as a kid, all of it, all the stuff that got us into comics, everything we ever loved. We're all we have money now, and we're starting to kind of go back and revisit that, get those things that brought us into comics. Like, oh yeah, like you were talking about that Onslaught. This is an amazing story, amazing character. Everybody should love that story, that and those characters. I'm a Marvel guy, though. That's my opinion.
it looked cool. Aesthetically, Onslaught looked cool, but that was about it.
That's because he was cool. Anyways, Rich, how dare you, sir?
I dare. I love being on the internet and seeing everybody that's still like, I don't know if they're joking now or take it seriously when they talk about Darkhawk. Like, that's always a fun one. That always makes me laugh. They're always like, did you get your Darkhawk #1? As far as like news for me, I saw MCM London was canceled.
Yep.
Continuing this weird trend where it's like you see people like Jesse who can thrive and stuff like that. He's buying collections, he's selling books, but industries like these industry shows and the big conventions and all that stuff are like, they still, because of this COVID thing and everything, it's like it is still a very real problem and crisis and all that other stuff for getting everyone together, for being able to announce these new ideas and stuff like that. And I don't know, man, it's getting to this point where it's like, it might be next year, but who knows if it's even further than that now, who knows, because of all these waves. And they're like, oh, with the second wave, they're like, oh, we're in the first wave. So these shows are really, by this time next year, if there's no shows, I really feel like we're going to be, that part of this industry will be suffering pretty heavily.
We had our local show. I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, of all places, and we have running water here, by the way. But in South Dakota, we have a show called SuperCon, which is what I talked about, which were your local smaller shows that we often will say there's a possibility of those happening. They had to just send out an email, which was really well worded, and I think a lot of convention organizers could learn from it. I mean, it was really, really good. But they basically said, we have to shut it down this year. We can't do it. And they're trying to do something with a virtual con, which is wonderful, with their vendors and such. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's affecting everybody. And, look, I mean, I don't want to, this is almost becoming political now that we talk about COVID. I mean, we're all recognizing that, but I mean, it's just one of those things where, like, today they had the Senate hearing and Fauci was saying we could get up to 100,000 cases a day. We're not through wave one. I mean, we're not even close through wave one. And a lot of people are looking at it thinking whatever, but, large gatherings just don't seem to be anywhere near us at this point. And so I think that I continue to think online sales are going to continue to pick up. I mean, like, they're already gangbusters and they continue to be gangbusters. And Jesse's proving it with what he does. Those of us that sell online, I've never had a better year for sales. I mean, this is our time to be honest with each other. I mean, this is insane because people still want things. and it comforts them. But I think Rich is right. I mean, we were thinking, okay, we're going to wrap up this year, and then hopefully next year we'll start the con season again. I'm not sure that there will be gatherings because right now we're seeing it with sports. I mean, we're talking about Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, and we're talking about the NFL having to figure out a way to play the game with potentially no fans, or even college sports having no fans whatsoever. And even college sports potentially not even happening with seasons coming up that last into next year. So this is a real deal. And you know, it's continuing. And it's weird because our show really started about COVID. And then last week we were talking about, you know, the rah, good stories about stuff, and they are there. But we still have to come back to that we still do have issues with that. And we have to work our way around it. So, yeah, it's sad to see MCM, but it's not shocking.
Right, but
it's the responsible thing to do.
This is the thing that scares me about the industry shows like suffering as a result, is that those higher ups and stuff like that, like all the people selling on the secondary market, all the direct sales are great and all that stuff and everything. But some of these parent companies and stuff like that, you know, whether you be Disney or AT&T, they want to go to trade shows to show, like, to get a gauge on things because they don't truly understand like the secondary market and all that other stuff and blah, blah, blah. So if they can't visually see the excitement, sometimes they might just pull out of stuff. You know what I mean? And just all of a sudden you see things getting canceled or something like that because they're like, we don't know how to promote in this new normal, this new world and stuff like that. And that's what makes me nervous about more of the bigger shows. Not saying they shouldn't be canceled because they totally should be, but saying that like if they don't see it, they stop believing in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's the part that worries me.
We have a major issue in my city alone where 3 weeks ago, my biggest competitor had to close because one of their employees had COVID. They just reopened 3 days ago, and now the store that took all their customers for 2 weeks just closed today because their whole team has COVID. So now what happens is those customers will now go back to the other store because the other store is reopened. Now, I'm not getting beat up as much for not opening. 2.5 months ago, yeah, people were giving me a hard time. I think a lot of people are saying, hey, great job not opening. We still have to survive, and I think you just have to find that pivot zone that makes sense to you and to your team, and then you have to explain it to your customer. And I think if the customer really puts it in essence that, listen, I'm just buying comics. Let's keep it easy. You know, I buy stuff. I pull up, they bring the books out to me, you know, private shopping, whatever you're providing. But I think the notion that just randomly letting people into your establishment, that's a challenge not just for you as a business, but it's a challenge for your customers around them. And I think that's this big issue we're in. I'm in reality. And the reality is I'm surrounded by every single store around me has had COVID on stores that have the master plan to avoid it with the mask and the spray and one customer per 15 minutes, all this stuff. It's just, I think you have to be smart and you have to provide a business that provides comic books, but on the flip end, also find ways to be even 10 times safer.
Yep.
And I think it shows. For me, I see your posts that you post on social media about, hey, we're going to be closed longer, we're going to be doing this. But there's also that reality of you've made sure that you've diversified how you sell books and how you make your money. And so a lot of that is the comic book shopping network and your ability to sell to people to where, you know, it's the touchless car wash, essentially. I mean, you know, you pack up the books, you mail them off, people get them in the mail, they're comfortable with it, they get to see the product before they buy it. So you were ahead of the curve on that. And I think a lot of stores, as we've talked about, still aren't quite there. It's quite an undertaking, but you have to do what's best for business. And I think at the end of the day, the other thing that you talked about, which I think is really important, is you said you have to do what's best for your staff. And you're also trying to look out for what's best for your diehard customers, you know, your Jesse James Comics customers that come to your store to buy products from you. You're trying to take care of them because they are a family. And I think the people that actually shop with you probably recognize you'd love for them to come in into the arcade. You'd love for them to do the gaming. You'd love for them to do all this, but you have to look out for their best interest as well as your own. And so I think anybody that shops with you probably recognizes that and understands that. So I say kudos to you on that.
All right, thanks.
So I guess I'll move into some things here. This stuff from I guess publishers, something that I've run into. I don't know if anybody else has looked into this or not, but this TMNT, The Last Ronin #1. Have you guys heard about what size this book is going to be?
Yep.
So 7.5 by 11.5.
Yeah, okay.
Which is why I ordered
fits this
0.
the bag and board that fits does not exist.
Right.
Okay, so and I'm just so a lot of customers. One of the things that you do, I don't know how you work this. If you give free bags and boards, if you make the customer buy the bag and board, every shop's different. But every customer likes to have their book bagged and boarded. I've never met a customer that just wants it floppy, walking out.
I respect the ones that do want it floppy walking out, though.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. But how and I would, just for the fact that I have my own bags and boards that I use at home, and I don't want your, whatever you're giving away for free a lot of the times, because I use specific. I'm very particular about what I put my comics in, as are a lot of collectors.
That's true.
That's fine. Everybody's allowed to be crazy. That's cool.
I reserve the right at all times to be completely off my fucking rocker. So what I don't understand is why when retailers are dealing with such shit, right now, why introduce a book size that has never previously ever existed anywhere on the face of the planet, except for maybe that 2000 AD, that whole Judge Dredd thing.
Right.
There was a weird size on that. I think those kind of
use
that size, and you'd have to get the bags and boards from England at that point, I think. Why would you put such bullshit onto retailers when all the other shit that they're facing right now? Is it just so you can put out a strange sized book? Granted it's an inconvenience, but why add to the other shit?
Right. The main reason for it is traditionally most people do walls. And so the whole idea is when you look at this wall, this plethora of Marvel, DC, Independence, or whatever it is on a new issue day, is you stick out not just by what your cover looks like, but what your size looks like. Those have never, I'm trying to go back to try to figure out who's been successful on that. The second worst exclusive we have ever done was a Tomahawk #1 by Donnie Cates, and I was so excited to do it. And it did come in around that size level, and our sales were horrible. 50%, 60% of the people that traditionally just bought all our exclusives said no because of the size. So I think sometimes someone rolls some dice, and in this case, this is one of those dice where I just don't see where it's ever been successful. Maybe back in Treasury days, but that was consistently every month the Treasury was coming out. So this is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think you could look at Black Label. That was a comic of an obscure more size. And everybody was like, it doesn't match with the rest of the collection. But I mean, that damned. I mean, thank God for that Batawang, because that made that whole line successful.
Let me interject, because what made that line successful and what sells the best of DC Black Label is the Sean Gordon Murphy, which is printed the actual size of a comic. Everything else that comes out from DC Black Label, I'm not sure why it has to be printed in that format. And I'm a DC guy also. I mean, I just wish it could be printed in the format of a comic, because it is something that does bother comic collectors and people that collect these things. Because right now I can go downstairs and I can go into my office and everything's bagged and boarded and put away and all of this. And then I've just got piles of oversized things that I'm like, do I put them on a bookshelf? Do I put them here? Where do I put them? And so I think sometimes the retailers, the publishers, it sounds like a really good idea as a concept, but are we really losing anything if we print it as a regular size comic? I mean, maybe if it was a Mobius or something. But at the end of the day, it could be printed as a normal comic. And
even still, you could print it as a magazine size instead of this weird obscure size that's half-inch taller than a magazine size. Won't fit in a magazine box.
Yeah.
Most magazine
It does push people away. I mean, it truly does.
Yeah.
When, you asked about that book, and I immediately kind of went like this with it,
Yeah.
that I ordered 0 on it, because there's a lot of great covers out there. But I hate to say it, I don't necessarily want to purchase them, because if they're coming in and they're that size, now I'm left with the problem of how am I gonna store them? How am I gonna mail them? How am I gonna ship them? And so I think that that's going to be a little bit of a daunting task for people, because you've got to find the right bag and boards to make it work. And you can, but you're going to have to search for those type of things.
It's something that definitely would have worked better if your stores were open. They could be at full capacity. Somebody's going to pick up their stuff and they see this thing like, whoa, this is a weird size. Oh, it's a Ninja Turtles. And you make that impulse buy.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's where this would have worked. Who knows how long this has been planned out too? You know, this could have been something that's been planned for like 6 months, and they're like, well, it's all drawn to this format. We can't really mess with it. So this is a thing where the current state of the world could have screwed up what was the plan for this book.
And I would just say to that, and I could be wrong, so don't anybody attack me. But if we're going to take 11 by 17 pages and shrink them down to comic book size format, I'm pretty sure we can shrink whatever pages these were down to comic size format.
Sure.
I think some detail run into as well, because we did an exclusive for this through our Germ Collectibles. You know, we did one with Kunkka, and we didn't have the dimensions when we were offered the cover. You know, we did everything and we turned it in. So he did the actual cover at different dimensions than what it's going to be printed in. So they're basically trimming our cover down, and they're going to cut some really important shit out of the image. So that's kind of, frustrating.
Yeah. Well, in speaking with Ramita Jr., when he was talking to me about when he did Superman Year One with Miller, he told me the black label paper they give you is double the size of normal comic paper, because they shrink that down. So if this format, this Turtles book's in an 11 by 7 or whatever, they probably gave them a more even oversized paper to draw this up. So I don't know what the logistics of it are. I don't claim to know all that stuff, but it's probably something that they planned out that they couldn't back away from, or they just didn't read the room properly.
Yeah. And I mean, once again, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I mean, we see all that stuff. I apologize here. Hold on.
What's your dog think about this?
Let me put this. I'm going to mute myself.
Sounds pissed, about as pissed as I am. So
see, JJ didn't want anybody starting shit with him about this book, and the dog went at him.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
that's what happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Chris Spencer, we are talking about Last Ronin. So, I still think it's going to be a good book. I am concerned because they're doing, I think it's a 6-issue run. So,
is it?
Yeah,
that was what I was going to ask, if it's a standalone or if it's a mini.
So it's, I don't know, like it's just, it's kind of, I don't know, it's bothersome to me. At the end of the day, it's not a problem. It's just an inconvenience, as you were talking about. I think it was last week, John.
Yeah,
it's
an irritation.
Yeah,
it's an annoyance. You know what I mean? It's unnecessary annoyance.
Well, let's talk about something cool though that's coming out this week, which is Negan Kills.
Yeah,
and that is coming out from Skybound, which was fully free, from my understanding, from Skybound to all retailers. They were able to order copies. They were able to get silver foil variants, gold foil variants, and all of those proceeds go to helping those stores out. And so, I don't know, what do we say? Major kudos. I mean, that's really a cool story at the end of the day.
I think it's
a week. There's no DC or Marvel this week.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say that.
So it fills in that void. And then also this week, we have Firepower coming out from Chris Samney and Robert Kirkman through Skybound, and that comes out as original graphic novel, 160 pages. I read for $9.99.
Oh, that's a prequel. The graphic novel is a prequel.
That's the prequel graphic novel, and then the first issue is a free comic book day issue, from my understanding. But, once again, a lot of people don't realize that The Walking Dead, one of the big pushes for Skybound with The Walking Dead, Jesse, you'll probably remember this too, was that when the first trade paperback came out, it was so cheap. It was like $9 for the first one. It was something where and this is when comics were still $3-4 a piece. You could literally pick that thing up and get a nice little run. And to me, that was always a big perk. So kudos to Skybound for doing this. I think it really does show that they want to help the shops out. And instead of just saying they want to help shops out, they're using their properties in order to make that happen. And then looking at that original graphic novel, which is the prequel that Greg was just talking about, that's a lot of paper and a lot of reading material for $9.99, 160 pages. So I'm kind of excited about both of those coming out tomorrow, I guess it would be. And to see the foil covers, I mean, that's cool because now you've got stores that have the ability. They were not open-ended orders on those. I think they were pretty limited to what you could get. So I think that that'll be another boost. So kudos to Robert Kirkman and Sean Kirkham over there and Skybound and everybody over there. Just awesome job all the way around.
Yeah, if I go back in my history, one of the things Skybound does at San Diego Comic-Con, they invite 50 stores to this breakfast, and Kirkman sits there and talks and does all this stuff, and you really feel, me, I've always been part of that great family. It's exactly that. Skybound is one of those companies that I just say, listen, this is a family publisher. They're really into helping the stores out. I was talking to Kirkman about something that there was a time of day that if I was financially in trouble, I always knew I could just go order some Walking Dead and I would be fine because everybody wanted it. I think connecting covers of every trade all the way up to XYZ was a cool thing. But I think the notion that they're one of the publishers that really look out for the retailers, and I think that's a cool thing to have on your badge there.
Yeah, and I think Sean Kirkham, who's a dear friend of mine, and I always have worked with him at the Skybound booth. So I never went to those breakfasts because I was usually working in the booths. Right. But I know that they always made sure that you guys were taken care of. And Jesse, you I, we would talk several times when you come over to the booth and clean us out on stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, really, they're always trying to find things that are new and unique and different. And I love that about them, whether it be action figures, whether it be posters, prints, Negan bats, jewelry, just all kinds of unique items and different things for collectibles, even all the way to pop vinyl figures. So I know Skybound's got a lot of cool things coming out. And we've got the Invincible animated series, too, coming out here soon. My Invincible sales, me personally, that's a thank you to Skybound because I've been selling a lot of Invincible stuff online this week. And that shows that people are really getting excited about that series coming up on Amazon. So anyways, I just think that that's really cool all the way around. And I think something to look forward to. And it's almost just like talk about a perfect week to have that book come out.
Yeah.
Because there's no DC or Marvel. I mean, I don't even think Dark Horse has anything out from what I understood for maybe even the month. So it's a lot of little independent stuff, and there's some other stuff, but Skybound is focused in tomorrow, and I think that could be a really important day for them. So,
and that graphic novel is a really good one especially for $10. They sent shops reader copies a few months ago, so I got to read it back in February, and it's really good.
Did you like it?
Oh yeah, it's really good. If you like Avatar or anything dealing with like ninjas or martial arts, it's definitely up your alley. It'd be up your alley.
It looked like an Iron Fist type story for me a little bit in a way, just because of everything. But I love Chris Samney's art too. I mean, he's a classic artist in my opinion. He's got kind of that Mazzucchelli feel to him to me. And so, beautiful line work and such. So yeah, I'll definitely see if I can pick one up tomorrow because it would be nice to sit down and read that. So
Greg, get us in trouble. Show us the last page.
Greg all of a sudden reaches into his back pocket and has got it folded in half. Shows us.
Jesse.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Yeah, my only issue with that would be is starting with a graphic novel and having to switch to singles afterwards. Kind of was the only thing where I was like, I'll probably wait for the next graphic novel just because I read the first one as a graphic novel.
Sure.
Well, and they do take chances. I mean, so all those people that are speculators might lose their mind on, what's first appearance and what's this and what's that. But at the end of the day, look, I mean, it's probably going to be a good read, and Kirkman I trust. And so I think that this will be a fun one. I mean, he's multi-talented and it's really cool to see. So it just sounds exciting for me. So
Kirkman's stuff is also funny because it always comes out like everything he does always comes out differently. Like when Oblivion Song came out, and it had its own collector's statue and gift set and everything like that.
Cory,
So,
he's going to get it right now.
going to get what?
The Oblivion Song collector statue box set.
Yeah, that whole box set. I remember they're just like Robert Kirkman's new thing. Yep, there it is. So Kirkman
Yeah, and I mean,
how to get your money.
Mike Stevens.
There's all kinds of stuff. Well, now that Jesse's out of the room,
I'm sure he'll be back at some point.
I'm sure he will.
But I want to switch gears just a little bit to something that I'm really excited about, something I've been reading. Last week we talked about, and this is not pertaining to retailing so much, unless, maybe it's time for you to dig into your, back stock and find some specific issues. But I've been reading a bit that
Alpha Flight.
No, I've seen that, but not only is Michael Keaton coming back for Batman, but they're also going to introduce Terry McGinnis. So
I mean, you knew that was coming. The minute you hear Old Man Batman, you're just like,
when we discussed this, DC is making my dream come true. I've been wanting to see this movie. I am so excited.
They're watching. They're
watching right now.
Yeah.
Cory, if this happens, and if this is all true, and we're going to have a Terry McGinnis, and we're going to have him come back as kind of the old man Batman, will you get a tattoo on your chest of old man Michael Keaton Batman? I mean, I think
if you pay for it, I will get it.
I will absolutely pay for it. I do that with everybody. I have really bad tattoo ideas, but I'm willing to pay for it.
I'll throw $5 on that.
Really bad tattoo. So we're
just a Michael Keaton here with like some roses around him. Yeah, I mean,
I'm all over it.
If I think people would lose their mind about Batman Beyond. I mean, once again, we have to look at who we're catering to from that perspective of people want new stories, and we've got a young audience. I mean, look how well the Spider-Verse movie did, and how popular Miles Morales is, and Miles Morales is popular simply because he appeals to that generation, like my son's generation and the kids that are a little bit older. I mean, he's wearing Jordans, I mean, there's just something, so it's hip and it's cool. And Spider-Gwen, same thing, she's got half her head shaved, and she, it's just something that relates to people that maybe aren't my age, clearly, or maybe not any of our ages, but it's something that's cool. But Batman Beyond with an older Batman, there's always something really cool and unique when we can have that touchstone that we can go back to, which is the older Batman, and then we can still come back and everyone has their newer Batman. So right. I think that would be really fun. So if that happens, it'd be amazing.
Even when I was growing up and I was watching Batman animated series and all that stuff, my buddies would call me and be like, dude, that Batman Beyond show though, like they'd be really excited about that. So I'm curious to see who they cast for it. When we have a little extra time, we should fan cast that whole thing.
I mean, I'd be fine even doing like a CG like Spider-Verse was, where they announced a Ninja Turtles reboot. It's going to be CG instead of live action. So, I mean, maybe aim it at kids. Well, not necessarily kids, but that audience that John was talking about, that enjoyed Spider-Verse. Like that.
Well, a perfect example of it, I just had a friend of mine called me who was supposed to be working on the Scooby-Doo movie that came out, and we were having this long discussion, and I said, oh my goodness, I said, Blue Falcon and Dynamite were in it. Captain Caveman was in it. I haven't seen it, but I saw the commercials, and I'm like, I've got to see that. That's a great way to cross over into other generations, because if you're a parent or you're someone of a certain age, you may want to watch that because you remember Blue Falcon and Dynamite, and you remember Captain Caveman, and you remember all of that stuff. And the other kids are like, I just want to watch Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Machine and all that stuff.
It's the same thing with Wreck-It Ralph, when he's there and he's with Sonic and Pac-Man and all that stuff.
Absolutely. So. Or Ready Player One, when you've got the DeLorean driving through and you've got the Iron Giant in it.
Love the Iron Giant.
What's that?
Love the Iron Giant.
Oh, me too. One of my favorites, Rich. Absolutely. One of the best.
I'll pay for Greg to get that tattoo.
Greg will get that tattoo.
On his back. Wait, it's going to be on his back. And
on his
back, it's going to go across, And then it's going to be, I don't know how to figure it out, but it's going to have him in the car. So Greg can actually move around like the Iron Giant.
No, we're going to get Greg and Cory connecting tattoos. It's going to be Iron Giant versus Old Man Batman.
Back to back. They have to fight back to back.
Old Man
Batman.
Batman.
There's not enough space on my back at this point.
Yeah, I've got my back's covered in tattoos, so.
Well, we'll just pay to get it all
I don't like your guys' negative attitude about this. I don't like your not willingness for all this.
Jesse's going to do a
tattoo
special.
reach.
Jesse's doing a special binge bar with all proceeds going to getting the tattoos removed, which I'm sure is painless, and then recanvassing your bodies in order to put the Iron Giant versus Old Man Batman, Michael Keaton.
Also,
you could be doing the binge bar while Cory's getting a tattoo in the background.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And I think we should probably go with something this epic. I think we should go with someone who's probably only done tattoos for a couple months professionally.
No, it should be somebody's first tattoo.
Yeah.
Traditional, like Asian kind of.
Oh,
Right. That's easy.
Off the rails.
Yeah.
I'll get into comics a little bit. I do want to discuss another thing that I read this morning. I don't know if the rest of you guys have seen this. This guy's written this series for the last 10 years, I believe, give or take, at least since 52, pre-new 52.
Oh,
Scott Lobdell.
Well, he took a break and came on and did an amazing during the new 52.
But he's got 87 consecutive issues or something, 87 issues. I don't know what it is. But Scott Lobdell is officially departing from Red Hood and the Outlaws, Red Hood Outlaw, whatever the title is this month. He is departing that at issue 50, which means at 51 we will have a new writer. Now, I'm excited for this because nothing against Scott Lobdell, really. I mean, he's a great writer in the 90s. He's written some really good cable stories, in my opinion.
Created the Age of Apollo.
He did. I think with the end of this Red Hood, in my opinion, maybe it's just because I have the ability to think like he does or something, because I was able to predict a lot of what was going on in the story, and I just kind of lost interest on Red Hood and Outlaw. And that's just me. It doesn't mean he's a bad writer or anything. Just means I think it's predictable. I'm very excited for this character. I think Red Hood is a character that more people should love because of the backstory, because of how much there is in there. I'm kind of excited to see what DC does with that going forward.
He's no Nightwing.
He's better.
Nightwing.
I'm a Jason Todd fan through and through, so sorry, Greg.
So
I mean, who did they say who's taking over this?
They have not. They haven't said it's going to take over. They just that
who would you want to take over?
Who would I want to take over?
Yeah.
Lobdell kind of said he made some sort of like last sentence comment about who was next to take over, kind of like a sending off, and I don't know if it was a shot or if it was what it was going to be.
I've got a great idea.
What do you got?
Patrick Gleason comes back to DC and writes.
I 100% on board. Pat Gleason's a unbelievable writer. I would love to see him do all duties on it, and then I can whisper into his ear the things that he should put into the book. That would be wonderful. But no, that would be really cool at the end of the day. That actually makes a lot of sense.
I just want to
like that.
My understanding is Jason Aaron was making a run towards DC very, very soon.
Jason Aaron, did you say?
Yeah, because my understanding was he was making the jump to DC at some point. Why did that was the speculation?
Oh, I don't.
I mean that because he had written Thor for so long, I think he was ready for something new. I think Jason Aaron would be a good one. I think Tom Taylor would be a good one.
I was going to say that.
Tom King would be a good one. But I don't think he would, considering he's got the bat and cat thing going. But I think Tom Taylor. I've loved everything that Tom Taylor has done, from Injustice to All New Wolverine to he's doing this. I mean,
Yeah, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man was great. It annoys me how talented Tom Taylor really is.
I know, right?
You could just give him a character just randomly about anything, and he can make a great story out of it.
I'm gonna go with
Yeah,
David.
100%.
David F. Walker.
David F. Walker. I love that guy.
Is Jesse still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Jesse was like a statue for a minute.
Yeah. I just had to find we had to pull over and go to a friend's house, so phone was overheating.
I think the Red Hood's a great character. We all know it. It's just you have to get the right voice, and it's nothing to take away from Scott Lobdell and what he's done on that series. But every so often, you just have to have someone new take a stab at it and see what they can do. And I think a character like that, I think there's still a lot on the plate that you can develop and work with. So Jason Aaron, I think you said earlier, I heard some feedback, so I wasn't sure, but that would be an amazing writer to take on something like that. I mean, I would be excited if Greg Rucka decided to do it and he made it kind of a crime situation. So Ed Brubaker, which I know wouldn't happen, but yeah, I think a lot of people would be up to the challenge of taking a character like that and doing something with it. But Tom Taylor would be great, absolutely, because everything he's worked with. Chip Zdarsky would probably be fine with it. I mean, everything he gets on, he can turn into gold too. So,
well, Red Hood's like a complex character. He's, very, very deep character, but also very underdeveloped in aspects. Mm-hmm. So you could put any writer, any one of those top like 20 writers on that, and they'll probably give him a whole different backstory that you're like, wow, I never would have thought of that for this, but it works. You know what I mean? Like that's how blank of a canvas you can make Red Hood in a fun way.
With that, I wonder, in keeping with the theme of Retailer Roundtable, I wonder how, if this is something that DC would, what if they do a 51, they do a complete relaunch, because they've relaunched Justice League, they've relaunched Superman, they're going to relaunch Harley, at some point. What to me, it would make retailers to give that number one so that there's more, purchases. That way somebody
I would definitely do the number one because that way you could also people love number ones. You open it up for the variant option. It puts a lot more eyes on it. If you just change a writer or whatever, it's like, okay, you know what I mean? But if you're actually trying to start something fresh and new and put them in a bit of a different situation, scenario, go for the number one.
Yeah.
People love number ones.
And I think the fact that the rest of the nation is going to start carrying new issues starting next week. So over the next 8 to 10 weeks, you got a lot of 500 to 700 stores that are just learning how to sell DC again.
Yeah.
So
it'd be I think it would be in October or maybe it's November when issue 51 would release. That'd be something. I think that big things can be done with Red. I really do. Even if you just take the building again or something.
Well, and you just talked about it. I mean, if you're starting with a whole new creative team and going down a different path, which it kind of sounds like they're going to, you probably would relaunch with the number one. It's tried and true method. You can open it up for retailer variants. I mean, at the end of the day, Red Hood's a very popular character. I mean, I would love to see a Doug Mahnke Red Hood cover since, he was under the Red Hood. He was the artist on that series. So for me, I always associate him with that. But I would love to see that be interpreted by different artists.
Would Doug come back to do the interiors for Red Hood?
What's that?
Would Doug do the interiors for a Red Hood relaunch?
Doug's a company man through and through with DC, and I think at the end of the day, if they asked him to do anything, he would draw it. At the end of the day, I mean, I know he has options. He always has options on things he can do, and I think it's what speaks to him and the writer that he's going to work with. So, I would always say this: Doug this is his 25th year at DC Comics straight through, and before that was working on the Mask and stuff. And I think, as he's getting longer into his career, I think he's kind of figuring out he wants to start working in some things he hasn't worked on yet before with DC and such. So, yeah, I think it'd be cool. I mean, I don't know anything on that, honestly, but it would be, if he called me up and was like, hey, I'm doing the Red Hood, I'd be like, I'd lose my mind on it because it would be really epic at the end of the day. But as great of an artist as Doug is, you have to have a great writer with the series too. Back in the day,
And Jeff Lemire.
If it was Jeff Lemire, then I would literally just like lose my mind completely if those two were to merge forces. So
anybody affiliated with DC is watching, make this shit happen now.
Put Lemire and Mankey together. But if they put those two together on anything, I would be thrilled. I really would. I mean,
I'd want to see Lemire and Mankey on Swamp Thing.
That would be amazing.
I mean, like that. I think that would be a very good, profitable book.
Yeah, I mean, but that said, I mean, I think that goes back to that whole thing where when we talk about the X-Men, Byrne and Claremont, we all knew it when we were growing up, right, Jesse? It was Byrne and Claremont, Byrne and Claremont. Sure. It was always Marv Wolfman and George Perez, Wolfman and George Perez. You got to have the writer and the artist work. So there's some really not so great issues of the X-Men that Joe Mad worked on. But I'm always going to remember that art. But right now, we're not in that series where we want to, or that time where we want to spend all this money on a book that doesn't have any good writing but great art. We want it to be that House of X, that Powers of X, or House of 10, Powers of 10, right, where we have this great story, we know where we're going, and we've got great artists on it too. So I always say at the end of the day, man, it feels like you got to have that Sonny and Cher type thing. You got to have both in order to push something forward. And I think the pairings almost are more important than the character themselves, if that makes sense. Because if you tell me you have Jason Aaron and you have Eduardo Rizzo working on a Bat book, I'm buying it. I don't care what Bat book it is. It could be spoiler. I'm buying it. To me, it's the pairing of the creators. And there's a lot of great creators out there. So I don't know. I guess for me, it's if I trust in that writer enough, I'm willing to take a chance on a book like The Red Hood if maybe I never was.
So. Yeah, and keep in mind, guys, as a retailer, we're also looking at what week that releases and what type of competition it's going against as well. If you release it when the top 5 books are coming out that same week, that's a hard sell to someone. So there's so much that we look at as retailers when we buy something. And then we take out, believe it or not, we take out our personal feelings sometimes and what we think is awesome. And then we have to go back to trend. And trend is what sells books.
Yes. Yeah. Very true.
Well, it's also relying on the publishers like DC and Marvel and Image when they promote these things. Certain creative teams also drive books. Like when you got your posters for Absolute Carnage to put up in the store window, it said Cates and Stegman on that thing. Yeah. Like these guys are acknowledged as a creative team that moves books and stuff like that. Connor and Palmiotti, when it was Bendis and Bagley on Ultimate Spider-Man and all that stuff. Like there are those creative teams out there that people are like, I don't care who the character is because it's these two people working on it. I'm getting it. So it is a factor, and it can be an important factor if it's marketed correctly by the publishers.
Yeah, and just real quick, just so you know, DC is selling they're shipping you so much promo stuff. It's almost like what I got this week in promos was my whole year the last time I had a Diamond account with DC. It's ridiculous. And they're not sending you the 8-time folded over comic book that fits into it's literally fold once, that's it, ready to go. And they're huge. And that's I think exciting part for any type of store is when someone's there to help you promote product without having to say anything.
Yeah, even the Three Jokers book, they're what, you pre-order them, you get trading cards, you get a Joker trading card. So it incentivizes you to pre-order more copies to get all the trading cards.
Now on that one, I feel like the minimum order is 50 for the premiums, and there's 3 covers per issue. So I mean, we're looking at stores order 150 copies to get all 3 premiums. I wasn't completely clear on that one.
I think you have to order 50. I think you have to order 50 copies of cover A and B, and then you're open to order the other 3 remaining copies.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to order 50 of the premium. Okay.
You just have to order 50 of A and B, which are your first 2 covers, and then there's the other 3 that you can order. And then I don't know how.
So it's the Marvel variants that they're doing right now. Where if you order 150% of Avengers number 4, you can get this cover for Black Widow number 8 or whatever. I mean,
yeah, I've never been a fan of that, and I don't think retailers are a fan of that either. If you can order so much, if you increase your order on this book, which has nothing to do with the other book whatsoever, I think that's really tough to do to mom and pop comic shops. Because I've seen it where if your order exceeds 150% of what you ordered on Doctor Strange #3, which is not a book anybody's buying, then you can get so many copies of this. And I think sometimes it's just like, okay, make it simple. I mean, if a shop is willing to spend money and buy books, let them buy books. I understand ratio variance. I understand all this. But this Three Jokers is supposed to be so, this originally was just going to be 2 covers. They expanded it to make it 5 covers. If they make it simple, let the collectors collect, because there are going to be people, and I've already seen it online, that they want all 15 covers, 15 different versions of the Joker, and they want the playing cards. Don't make it difficult. It's money. I mean, you're making 5 times the amount of money on one book. So DC can make a ton of money off of this. Let's just not make it difficult on retailers to order this stuff. If they want to order all 5 covers, let them order all 5 covers of issue 1. I understand if you have to set certain bounds, but more than likely they already are looking at it if they're a competent shop and saying, 3 Jokers, I wonder if that will sell.
Yeah.
It's written by Scott Snyder. Yeah, it's going to sell. I don't think you're going to have any issues here. So I just want to get the playing cards. That's all I want.
Is it 3 Jokers written by Jeff Johns?
Excuse me, Jeff Johns.
Yep.
I apologize. Well,
that's why you don't get to order the premium cover.
Yep, I know. But Jason Fabok's doing the art. See, I was right on that one.
There you go. It's going to be a good looking book for sure.
Oh,
there's another fan you're talking about there. I mean, that's Jeff Johns and like 6 people was a good tandem, but
well, you see that more in DC. I mean, Snyder Capullo at this point, but King's teamed up with Lee Weeks and all these awesome artists, and like they just make great teams.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff and Doug worked together on Green Lantern for I think 4 or 5 years straight through.
Yeah. And then Shane Davis, and even
Ed Dennis, or excuse me, who am I thinking of?
Gary Frank.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
that Doomsday Clock was a good looking book.
Oh
yeah,
it looked good. Yeah.
Took 2.5 years, but
by the way, has anybody been watching, or did anyone rewatch Watchmen? I know, Jesse, you haven't watched it at all yet, correct?
No.
I thought I was watching Watchmen, and it turned out I was watching the news.
Thank you. Talk about a series where I'm watching it now going, wow. I mean, I've already seen it, but my wife hadn't seen it yet. And she kept going, why are the police officers wearing yellow masks? And why are they doing this? And why are they doing that? And, she had no idea about the Tulsa massacre or what was considered Black Wall Street. She had no clue of any of that, which is the premise of what the story is based on. And so I said, yeah, I mean, that's true. And so we started reading into it and finding out the facts. And so it's just an amazing, I love that series. I don't know. I don't mind watching it again. I'm not one that really wants to watch things over and over again, like favorite movies I will. But when it comes to series, it's like, I don't want to watch this whole thing again. And now we're watching it, and it's fun to see it through her eyes. But she keeps going, who's that character? Who's this character? And the beautiful part is it's like, well, here's a Watchmen trade paperback if you want to read and catch up on it. You don't need to, but it certainly helps, I think, for any of us that have seen it. So.
All right, guys, we are at our 8 o'clock time, so we'll gonna make our rounds here and get closing. Thank everybody. Start with Jesse.
Hey, buy Paper Girls and buy Awesome Comics by Rob Liefeld. Great stuff. They just made a big announcement about Paper Girls today. You are going to love the series, and I think the public will also really love it as well. So,
JJ.
I'm glad that Jesse just told me about Paper Girls, because while we were on this, my phone was going off that I was selling Paper Girls copies on eBay.
Yeah.
So I guess I better increase the price a little later.
Yes.
So there we go. Rich.
For the past 20 minutes, all I keep thinking about is these old man Batman and Iron Giant tattoos, and I'm kind of fixated on that right now. I need to make that. We're going to start a Kickstarter for that. It's going to be fun. We're going to do it live on this and everything.
tattoos made.
Yeah.
No,
And then we'll do what they did in Amazing Spider-Man 238, put the tattoo in the back of a comic book. I mean, come on.
I know. See, it's all there. It's
Yeah.
all there.
Great.
It's just some positivity. Anybody out there that's doing all these online sales, stepping out of their comfort zone and just feeling dragged down by it, like know that people are paying attention even if you don't always see it. The grind is kind of hard sometimes, but you're doing a good job, and what you're doing is what you need to be doing. So congratulations, and just keep going.
That very well said there.
I read a post this morning about something like that.
He's a Nightwing fan, though, so take it with a grain of salt.
It was a good post.
It was.
For me, guys, just make sure you check out Comic Book Shopping Network every day, Binge Bar specifically. We have Comic Con Line coming up in less than 2 weeks. We're really excited for that. And Comic Book Shopping Network is an official sponsor of that, and we're doing our best with that to bring our new normal to you guys. Make sure everybody gets to take part in some form of convention. Look at him, just staring at me.
We're getting tired. You can say that also.
We're getting
just
tired.
getting tired. I've been tired.
Yeah. I guess that's pretty well it for me, man. It is 8:03. We're sometimes so we'll let everybody go. Oh, Jesse, one thing talking about something. Maybe next week to help shops out, let them know what your best-selling book was for the week on the binge.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do that. We
should be digging for,
Yeah.
Go to your back stock because customers are loving this book. Why aren't you selling this book?
Okay, excellent. You got it.
I just hope my wife doesn't see this episode because she's going to be calling Jesse saying, we have a lot of comics for sale.
Yeah.
So, I'm a little worried about this one right now, but
I can't wait till next week when it's live from JJ's house and Jesse's I'm going through the comics.
Jesse over here. Hey, everybody.
He's out shopping.
Yeah, all of a sudden Jesse James pops up.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
Everybody be safe.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick thing. This collection I bought, which is 10,000 pieces, the guy kept on bringing up, oh, I got New Mints 98 and all this. And I kept on saying, okay, but do you have any 90s books? And it's so weird to say that when you're buying a collection, because usually you're like, oh my gosh, 90 books in this collection. So it's a great thing, guys and gals, and enjoy comics.
All right, guys, we will see you next week for episode 16.